she retreated into a hyper-masculine identity because she feels femininity betrayed her. She hated her own femininity. The enemy will cause you to hate your own authentic identity. She hated her womanhood because she was abused in her womanhood. She was molested. And so she blamed it on being feminist. She took on this masculine identity. And the Lord even, and we might get in trouble for this, I'm sure we will, but the Lord showed me this. He said, the spirit of that man that abused her hijacked her.
Hey, beautiful people. Welcome to the conversation part 2. I hope that all of our viewers are well and wonderful. I am your host, D.Sharrieff, affectionately known as Dennis Massenberg. Our objective here tonight is to provide a response to the now 2 interviews featuring Bishop Keith McQueen, former pastor of the Powerhouse Church of Deliverance in Indiana and bishop over Powerhouse Global Network. After being a mascot for the Affirming Movement for over a decade, he has now taken to the position to destruct and to destroy, to demonize the Affirming Movement. He has switched from being an ally to an agitator and a bully of the Affirming Movement, and now is trying to launch an ex-gay movement. We are here as affirming leaders to give a response and a rebuttal and to facilitate the conversation. We want to welcome back our esteemed guests, my sister Candace E. Hardnett, Nechemyah Sullivan, Malik McFarley, and Michael Richards. We are going to ask Candace to lead us in introductions, name, pronouns, location, profession, and why did you decide to come back for part 2? And the other guests will follow.
Well, thank you so much for that warm intro. My name is Candace Hardnett, former pastor and founder of Agape Empowerment Ministries that was located in Savannah, Georgia. I am since retired, bless the Lord, and I now reside in Mexico, that's the homeland of my paternal lineage. And so I am blessed to be here tonight. When you asked and the panel asked if we would do a part 2 and asked if I would be a part of a part 2. And after seeing the second interview, absolutely, I'm here because not only was the first interview crying shame, the second one was even worse. And so I'm here to set some things straight, some things that I heard, and hopefully there will be listening ears and open hearts in which to receive some of what God gave me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, yes, I am Nechemyah Sullivan. My pronouns are he and him. I hail from the suburbs of Washington, D.C. I am the former rabbi of a Black Jewish synagogue that was stationed in Baltimore, Ruach HaKodesh Hebrew congregation. Now I am the newly elected leader of The Gathering, which is a interfaith spiritual community for Jews, Muslims, and Christians. I am a licensed clinical psychotherapist of 19 years. I am here because there is some unfinished business that needs to be taken care of. There's more conversations that need to be had. There's more clarity that needs to be provided. I think that there are people who want to hear more, they want to understand more, and that is why I'm here tonight. Ultimately, as Malik McFarley said last podcast, to be a steward and a gatekeeper of the affirming theology. Thank you.
Michael Richards.
Hello, everyone. I am Michael Richards. I am originally from the UK, but I reside here in Atlanta, Georgia. I go by he, him. By trade, I am a personal trainer / professional dancer. And the reason I am here this evening is to hopefully find a balance of understanding as to why Bishop McQueen has chose to do what he has chosen to do, whilst I may highly disagree with a lot of the choices that he has made. I like to do my best to find a understanding as to why people from the church family, especially the UPPC, do what they do in the ways that they do, in hopes to grow my knowledge in what my experience is on behalf of the UPPC. So I'm just here overall also to tell some hard truths and say what some people may not say in a way that allows clarity, understanding, but built around nothing but love. But sometimes love isn't as nice as we want it to be. It comes in different shapes and forms. And that is my mission here tonight. Thank you, Dennis.
Malik.
Yes, my name is Malik McFarley. Also, am my pronouns, I'm sorry, is he and him. I was the former pastor here of an affirming ministry called New Beginnings Christian Fellowship. And the reason why I wanted to get back on for part two, and I'm going to say it again since at part one, I'm here to be a custodian, to sweep up, to wop up, to use a disinfectant of the affirming ministries and to bring clarification to what it is that we actually do. And it's one thing that it's not demonic, it's not full of witchcraft, and I definitely wanted to be back on to share this place and time and this platform with everyone to talk about those things because I think it's very important. First, because you have to, if you're gonna say something, you have to say the whole truth. And because when you tell half truths, that's also a lie. So I do believe that's the reason why, again, I am back on for part two, and I am excited because now you begin to see the actual pattern. And as we see it all now, we see it gradually moving into what we had already stated already was going to happen. So you elaborating more on what's even more to happen and what's to come too as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. I am super excited to be in you all's acquaintance for part two. I have curated a few questions to kind of shape our time tonight, but I want an organic flow, and we're going to allow the Spirit of God to just flow through our conversation tonight. And so, without further ado, we understand that within the affirming movement, that it is not monolithic. In other words, not all ministries and organizations share the same principles and belief systems. We are clear in understanding tonight that Keith McQueen's beef and gripe is not with the affirming movement because the movement is comprised of millions of LGBT plus individuals, allies, and inclusive spaces expressed in worship gatherings, community centers, and online groups of all ethnic backgrounds across the United States of America. Keith's issue is not with the affirming movement. His issue is with one church and one organization. It is unfair for him to bully an entire movement because he is offended by one location, one bishop, one church, and one organization. Keith's beef is with his spiritual father, Bishop O.C. Allen, the pastor of Vision Church of Atlanta, and the organization, the United Progressive Pentecostal Church. So, my first question tonight is why do you think Keith would indict an entire movement when his offense is isolated to one organization? Any takers?
Well, I guess I'll opt to go first. I believe his choosing is because sometimes things are not easily understood. And the reason why I say that is because as a previous member of the Vision Cathedral of Atlanta, there has been highs and lows, and my experiences have been my experiences. And that isn't aimed at just one person within the UPPC. It's a multitude of things or a conglomerative of things that have come together that have had me make that decision for myself. Now, in my ministry and what I want from my relationship with the Lord, I chose that for myself. I would never blame Bishop O.C. Allen. I would never blame First G. I would never blame the amazing Marika Chisholm. I would never blame anybody specifically for the things that I chose to do. And also, there is a way to go about doing certain things. So, the reason why he has chosen to be offended, take it out on everybody else, is because sometimes you just don't have the balls to say what you got to say, and you haven't got the backbone to back up what you're gonna say. The reason why you cannot come out your mouth and say directly, hey, Bishop O.C. Allen, this is my problem, is because the backlash and the standard and the pedestal that Bishop O.C. Allen upholds, it's not going to work well for you at all. So, whilst I may not agree, and like I would say, I would double down, I do not agree with everything that the UPPC chooses to do. But in you choosing to take it out on everybody else, you just don't have the balls to say a name. Let's just call it what it is. Like, you just don't have it to do it with. Just like in your previous interviews, baby, you ain't saying nothing but nobody. You tried to you made an example out of somebody and chose to change their name from Dennis to Denise in whatever you chose to explain and whatever that whole situation was. But your point was, she'll know that I'm talking about her. Well, just say the name. And that's just, if she knows and a bunch of people already know, what's the harm in you saying another name? And so for me, it's, if you're going to do something, do it. Don't just kinda, I'm gonna pussyfoot around this, because that's not what it is. Just state your claim, state your problem, and start to heal. That's my opinion. You just don't have the balls to do what needs to be done. That's why we are here to say, hey, Keith McQueen, if you've got an issue with Bishop O.C. Allen, then go talk to him. That's it. Because you could have gone straight there and then figured out your personal issues, but you made it about everybody else. And my brother, you are still dealing with your own issues. That's got nothing to do with any of us. So I'm gonna stop there before I keep going, because hey, we go, we go, yeah.
And so I would add to that. I think that was a great segue, Michael. So it's projection. He's projecting onto the whole entire affirming movement for some of and escaping using the affirming movement as an scapegoat. And Michael alluded to some of that, in that there's most likely he has this rage that he cannot fully express towards his actual offender, or who he perceives to be his actual offender, which would most likely be someone who he had deemed as a spiritual father. And so, therefore, he has this anger that he can't fully express or is afraid to express. And then he probably has this shame for having trusted this individual and defended and promoted the movement in the name of this individual. So, and the other thing is, he may be afraid that, that he will be complicit in some things as well. So he, in a very indirect way, is avoiding the actual place or the actual person that he feels has offended him. And so I just think that he has this displaced pain that he has decided to smear the whole entire movement with, and actually, want to paint the movement as being, very vile. And then also, I think he wants to control the narrative and be the moral authority. So by indicating the entire movement, he seeks to gain a moral high ground. So he's coming out, and now I see the truth now. So this is what he's doing. And of course, immunity from being critiqued. So if you disagree, you're not a part of the corruption. Okay. And then vilify everybody while making himself look like the victim. And so these are some of the things that I think why he is projecting onto the movement, because it's easier to do than to face who and what he feels has wronged him or has done something wrong. So now his broader condemnation of the movement creates a simplified story where he's able to present himself as the awakened survivor, the whistleblower, or the righteous exploser of nothing to expose except for the stuff that he was involved in, because a lot of what he's talked about was stuff he actually was involved in, and then he tries to then project that onto the entire movement.
Because, sorry, let me just add one thing to my previous statement in saying that his next predictable move, and I want to say it before he makes it, because I want to know that we are 10 steps ahead of what everything you're about to do. As sure as I am black with big lips, I promise you, the next statement, when he hears this statement, is going to be, I've got nothing against Bishop O.C. Allen. It's got nothing to do with him. What is your issue with Bishop O.C. Allen? I promise you, Keith McQueen, if you come out and say that, I'm letting you know now, Michael J. Richards himself knew you was about to say that. But we know your issue. I'm just want to say, we know. Before we get to it, Keith, we know. Carry on.
And the one thing I would like to basically add, real quick, what he's actually trying to do to me, to me in my mind, it is I'm going to denounce everything. Now watch me go blow up over here. But somebody has to be thrown under the bus. Let me throw everyone under the bus. Let me go show y'all what I'm getting ready to do. And that's the way that he's really giving it. And even from the first interview down to the second, you can see the quote unquote deliverance, if y'all know what I mean, taking place and how it's shifting from the first interview to the second interview to the third, whatever. I mean, however many interviews, you see the performative transformation taking place, the one that he wants to portray.
If I could just add one more thing, and I think for me, it's pretty blatant that it is for the love of money, that it's
Yes.
really, the root of it all, because at the end of the day, there are plenty of people. I think the first go round, him leaving, him starting his own church, him trying to duplicate UPPC, I think that really speaks to and confirms exactly what you all are saying. But I think at this point now, he has realized that there is an opportunity. The harvest field is very ripe for picking right now. Politically, this is the time to launch a ex-gay movement. If we really just going to be honest about it, and he wants to grab that money. He wants to fill and line those pockets. This is lucrative, or at least he believes it is. This is lucrative. So to throw the entire movement under the bus, sure, that's a small price to pay. To throw,
Mhm.
I'm gonna come out on top. I'll have a new car. I'll have the fancy suits. I'll have the whatever type of shoe, because I don't actually. It's about self-indulgence and what he wants and what he can get by demonizing. And here's really the long and the short of it, is that the straight church is gullible as all get out. They will believe. I mean, he's
Anything.
seen it done before. He ain't new. I mean, we've seen Andrew Caldwell. We see Jackie Hill Perry. We see the ex-gay folk. He's like, okay, if they can do it, I can do it too. And how much better can I do it? Because these are people that did not have and rise to the platform that he had in the affirming movement. These people are just as gullible, and he's feeding into it. And as he's feeding into it, buy my book. As he's feeding into it, sow into my ministry. As he's feeding into it, sign me up for a speaking engagement. Here's my fee and here's my rider. He is wanting publicity, he wants to be known, and he wants ultimately he wants that money. And even money, to be honest with you, I think two and two go to hand, but like you said, he wants that power, but he just wants to be seen and acknowledged. I think what we are seeing is a child, the inner child in him that didn't get the attention and love from his father that he wanted, needed, and deserved, did not get the attention that he needed and wanted a spiritual father in O.C. Allen that he needed, wanted, and deserved, and is seeking this on the outside. And instead of learning validation, inward validation, and through God, he's seeking that validation on the outside world.
And
Candace,
to add,
let's talk about this rollout plan to launch an ex-gay movement. This movement had its peak in the early 1990s to the early 2000s. Why do you think this ex-gay movement is back on the table, and why would this be the climate for it?
Yeah, I said this last time, and I'll reiterate it for anyone who didn't hear, and I'll expound a bit. But politically, where we are as a nation, and just worldwide, it is a very scary thing to be LGBTQ right now. This is not the time that it honestly, for many people to be out. And for those of us that are out, this is a scary time for many of us. There are people right now bracing themselves for conversion therapy legislations to come down and trickle down into legislation within their states and things like that. And so we're seeing this not just in church, we're seeing this politically. Our nation has a whole rollout campaign against trans kids at this point. I mean, they're finding literally the youngest and the smallest percentage of people to demonize. So for people who, well, and I'll say this, well-meaning people, in my opinion, for the mother who is concerned for her child, who is showing tendencies or may have already come out as LGBTQ, who wants very much for her child to stay safe, she's prime market. She's prime market for this ex-gay, I can turn your kid straight. You can, for the person who is LGBTQ, and see, now we have bigotry that is being emboldened from a higher, from the president of the United States. And so now for the person who is losing family members, and those family members that used to be silent and felt ashamed of themselves to be so openly bigoted, they're very vocal now. And so for the person who is not welcome to Christmas dinner, for the person who can't come to do holidays, for the person that will not be invited to the weddings or the funerals, this is prime market. And so we are being attacked as a community at an all-time high right now. And anyone that has devious intent toward the LGBTQ community, because we are being so attacked, we are now vulnerable. And I mean, the wolves are going to come what they say, the sharks come when they smell blood. Wolves come when they see the hurt lamb. And that's what we're experiencing right now.
And I really want to piggyback Candace real quick. I love that you said that because I literally just had a situation and about the political climate. I'm a century at the city school district here. Just today, I have a young man, 11 years old, and he has those, tendencies. And he got into a fight today with a boy, and the boy said these words: "I don't like gay people." Not only that, the young man also said that his parents are, of course, not in agreement. In fact, one of the statements that she made was, "You're going to be a man in this house." And these are the things, like you said, it's a buildup. So I wanted to confirm what you were saying is actually true because I deal with the kids in the school and these things that are going on.
Why do you think he is on this money grab mission? Like, what is it that's driving him to be on this mission to get these coins? Why?
Well,
It's the whole rollout plan. Like, it's clear that it is in sync. Like, it is line upon line, precept upon precept. This is done, and this need to be done by a certain time. Like what is this plan all about?
In my belief system, and I don't know the ins and outs of everything that needs to be known, but the only reason why you go looking for money is when you ain't got none. So
That part.
let's call a spade because it's a spade, not a spatula. Therefore, I don't know your previous ongoings with whatever happened with your old church. Maybe somebody could just give me more clarity. But from what I can imagine has happened, something somewhere legally, illegally has come down your pipeline. This is just, I could be completely wrong, but this is just my assumption because I'm not going to make such a drastic move without good reason or measure. And there is a way I'm going to go about it. If I am financially secure on a human level, we don't even have to do UPPC level, on a human level, if I am financially secure and I'm going to exit from something to go on another endeavor, I am financially secure enough to let my previous employer know, hey, thank you for having me here, but kindly, I'm going to go on to doing other things at this time. But thank you. A dramatic way to get a response from your previous employer would be like, I quit and walk out the door. Because you want to cause a ripple effect for your previous employer as to where you're going next. So that's just on a human level. So in my mind, I believe there's something that's come down the pipeline somewhere, somehow, that has driven him into maybe bankruptcy. It may be foreclosure. It may be whatever it may be, because the way he's gone about it as a man of God that can speak in fluent tongues and is saving lives and casting out demons. This is not the way a man of God would move on behalf of helping his own people. So that could be, hey, call it a haywire assumption. But for me, there was something in your ministry that didn't go to plan that has now gone upside down. But let me add this, and then I'll open up the floor to someone else. I know that in your last podcast situation, the last speech, he said there's something about there was a X amount of people that had passed away. And he said that he heard directly from God. That was supposed to be you. I don't know your relationship with the Lord, so that ain't none of my business. But baby, if the Lord is going to take you on home, he ain't going to say to you, that was supposed to be you. He just gonna take you home. Like, that ain't, yeah, maybe. That ain't it. So in my personal opinion, I don't know what spirit you heard say that to you. Because, hey, they take on different forms, shapes, because even the devil knows the Bible. That's what they say, right? At the end of the day, there is a lot being said, and there's a lot not being said, and there's a lot of misconstrued messages where also it's not backed up by full evidence. Just like me saying that you going bankrupt. There may be evidence, there may not. That's just my assumption. So needless to say, playing both sides of the field, McQueen, I don't know what is and isn't going on, but the way you're presenting at this point, if you're in a financial difficult situation, we will respect you way more if you just came out and said, hey, financially, I'm in the gutter. I'm having to go through a divorce or been through a divorce, and the other person took more than me, or whatever it may be. That's okay for you to say. You've been transparent about everything else. Be transparent about that too, so we can all really know what's going on.
And it's going to be an
So we
easier
can
route
give to
for
your
him.
GoFundMe. Give to that GoFundMe when we open it up.
Okay. Listen.
Because it's definitely going to be easier for him going to the mainstream, and that's what he's thinking.
Behavior. They
That's
believe
what he's
anything.
thinking.
You've been saved. Oh, you've been saved. Welcome back to the house of the Lord. Da, 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 da. I'm like, look, that whole way of moving. It's an easy scapegoat for you. It's easy. It's so easy to go from being gay, now you're straight, welcome back to us. And just like we spoke on before, the political movement, I said it in my last and in the last podcast, and I will say it before, you are a Donald Trump dream right now. He is living for you and what you are doing on behalf of the LGBTQIA plus community, because he can look to someone in the UPPC black gay movement and go, hey, I got a pawn that can do my work that I don't have to do myself. Somebody else can do it for me, and I can just slide you a bit of extra here, there, and wherever under the table for you to be straight, because like we said, it is all a money game, all in all.
Well, we
Absolutely.
all know that the ex-gay movement and one of their mantras, and Keith shares the same perspective, is that being gay is outside of the will of God. There should only be two genders, two categories, and one sexuality. Can you respond and expound upon that statement, Nechemyah?
Yeah, so that is what is called repressive theology, and it pertains to homosexuality, okay, and refers to religious interpretations and doctrines that restrict and condemn to seek to suppress LGBTIQ plus identities, relationships, and expressions, okay, and it is the opposite of affirming theology. And if you don't remember anything else, repressive theology is the very opposite. And with that repressive theology, homosexuality is considered a sin, a disorder, and a moral failure. And it uses selective or literalist readings of religious text. And that is what Keith McQueen is going back to being a selective or literalist reader of the religious text. It promotes heteronormative activities as a divine design. And that's what we hear coming out of Keith McQueen's mouth. Come on, repressive theology. What else do you do? Impose behavior restrictions. Comes along with that discipline. You got to discipline yourself. Repress what you naturally feel is you.
Mm-hmm.
um, this whole brokenness. So repressive theology deals with brokenness or pathology, and the institution reinforces this. So you have to have this ex-gay movement, this structure in place so that you can help reinforce it. We heard him say on the second podcast towards the end that they have counselors. He invited people to call the counselors so they can call in and get the support and the guidance that they need to address them wanting to come out. And the link that Pastor Candace spoke about, We Want Out, is, I believe it's up and running. Is that the case? And so we went out. I mean, but my thing is, branding it or branding what he's doing as We Want Out. Well, no one is keeping you in. No one is keeping anybody in. If you want out, then just leave. I
Go.
just think the branding is interesting because it's another dig, it's another indictment on the affirming movement or those who have affirming theologies, as if we hold people hostage, as if we direct and stir people's sexualities and their desires, as if we do the same things that they do, and that is tell people to repress themselves. And then opposite, he's making it seem as if we are telling people you are gay. No, people are coming and saying that they are gay, that they are same-sex attracted. And we are embracing them as such and telling them that they are whole, that they are not broken, that they can be righteous and not sinful, and all the other things that they get called by non-affirming movements or non-affirming congregations thereof.
Can we go back, just back up just for a second? Because I think that there's one thing that I wanted to mention. And honestly, I wanted to see if anyone else was. But we were talking about why this movement, why now? There is evidence of financial misdealings. It's not like you can't pull it up. It's public knowledge. You can go to, I believe it's Indianapolis government, and see several lawsuits, judgments with Keith McQueen's name mentioned in mishandling money, foreclosures, and whatever else. I don't know. Could that be part of the reason that this is happening? He made a statement. He said, well, it would be much more lucrative if I would have stayed in the game.
He did say
Baby, you got
I remember when he
judgments. Yeah, you got judgments. What you mean it would have been lucrative? You got judgments. You wasn't paying your bills when you was over here. So you gonna be worse off over there? I hope not. And anybody that's leading him, if he's about to be broker over there, I don't know. Y'all gonna have to probably feed him, clothe him, and house him, because when he was
and they
over
will.
here and he said he was so rich, he wasn't paying bills over here. So yeah, there's a financial grab happening, and all you gotta do is go look it up. That this man is not a good steward.
So, being on point by assumption. Hey, I don't know your life, but I don't know the numbers. I don't. So you are under financial stress. Let's just call a spade, because that's what it is. You're under a lot of financial stress. Therefore, you've pulled a survival mode. And in pulling survival mode, you are claiming to be ex-gay. Because Keith McQueen, you are still so gay, sweetie. Stop. Stop.
Honey,
Please,
honey
please
girl.
cut it out, because we are all looking at you with the same eyes, honey. It is what it is, and we gonna try our best to love you, but we will not like you. I promise you. So in saying that, now it is public record that you are going through financial trials and tribulations. Even if you feel like you are going to have a financial gain and gain financially in your wealth, spiritually you are going to be so broke, it's not even going to be worth it. It's not even going to be worth it. We talk about financial wealth all day, every single day. Great, we want some money, but it's spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, you're broke down because you ain't in the best shape either. And from the personal trainer, I can give you a few tips. Trust me, I can. So needless to say, you're deeper in it than you think you are. And you're using other people's platform, i.e. Ezekiel, love you, King, but hey, you got a lot of things going on too. So needless to say, at this point, I believe it's very apparent that this is, like Nechemyah said, this is nothing to do with us. So by right, leave us out of it, please, because this is you giving onto other people. This is nothing to do with us. Deal with your demons. And this is a problem with modern day and age, because social media is such a big thing now. You can say one statement and it travels beyond the four walls that you have and affects so many people. Like a tiny segue, the only reason in my mind why COVID virus was so virus, because it was viral. It was on social media everywhere. The only reason why Trump has so much effect on the world at this point is because of social media. And now you've said what you've said on social media, and people take social media for Bible in this day and age. You can pull up your Instagram feed right now and catch a quote and be like, yeah, that's my life. So at this point, you seriously, McQueen, please sit with yourself, because this is hurting more. This is going to hurt your lineage, whatever it is. Whatever it is.
And see, and I had to say this too. Throughout the last podcast, all I heard him say was, and the Holy Spirit said to me, and God said to me. I think he said more of that than anything else. And my thing is, if God's been speaking to you all this time, well, God spoke to me about this. God said that could have been you. If it seems like you have a real good relationship with God, the way that it is that you speak. But if God is talking to you so much, why did it take all of this time for you to catch an epiphany? Because God said to me this, God said to me that, God said to me that, but it seems like He must have stopped talking at some point. He must have stopped talking at some point because you still was in the affirming ministries for God knows how long. But he was talking to you throughout that whole entire time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that was God, if that was Casper, but the math is not mathy.
Mm-mm.
It's just not.
And I think to add some more to what Michael was saying, when Michael referred to himself as the professional trainer that he is, he's speaking to people were wondering, because that wasn't a dig, to the fact that Keith McQueen was talking about gluttony in the second podcast, which was very interesting the way that he presented that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I guess, needing to consider yourself again, more projection for which he engages in. I think, in my opinion, it's not just one thing that created this conundrum. There's just a lot of things. It was just a perfect storm when you look at things that were going on in his life, the stress and the pressure of going through a divorce that he most likely had a lot of aid in contributing to that particular situation, and the anger that he had towards or have towards his former spiritual father. There's a lot of things at play. And then you have these financial issues that Pastor Candace spoke on, and certainly it is accessible. This is starting back in 2013, going all the way to 2018. Since he's been in Indianapolis, one of the first charges that he gets is driving on a suspended license and suspended tags, which, I don't know what was going on or what was happening, but, I'm sure, I would hope that there was somebody you could reach out to while pastoring to get your tags and your license straight. We see a constant pattern of the church in Indianapolis leasing property after property and being hauled into court for unpaid rent. We see this with University Community Christian Church versus Powerhouse Global. This was a church that he was leasing from. Others are just named people, but he was leasing from a church, and they took him to court for damage of property. They took Powerhouse plus for the rent. And then we also see AutoVest. So this is a company that obviously that lent money for cars. So whatever he was driving, they're taking him to court for defaulting on his loan. So we have that, and there are many other cases. So they were just moving from place to place, and what would happen is the court would send out, notifications and can't serve it. They would just keep sending out notifications and can't serve it. That's what you will see, and then somehow, in some instances, they end up striking a deal with the lender in order to make payment arrangements. And I am here to tell you that when you count up all of that money, it's in the hundreds of thousands. Okay. And this is spanning all the way up to 2018, 2019. And then they were leasing. And then when they finally bought a church building, and I mean, they've been in a couple of leasing properties. They finally decided to buy a church building through CIBM Bank. Now, mind you, when you look at all these court records, he has people in his church who have to co-sign, on these things. And their names are brought into these litigations. And then we get to, again, going back to when they buy their church building, the bank filed, suit against them because they defaulted, and what they found out was that fraudulent papers were presented, invoices were faulty because this bank provided loans for the repairs and the repairs for this particular property, and also provided the loan for them to purchase the property. So there are a bunch of invoices that they were able to verify were false. Also, they presented false paperwork from a religious organization that gives money to churches, and they also use that as proof of them being able to secure the building, and found out that that information that they presented was false as well. So all the information that they provided to get the building, that one loan, and then to repair the building, the other loan, was all false. It was all falsified. It's there in black and white. It's there in plain language. And while they have been able to, and this is while he's living on Lakeshore Drive. And everybody knows that Lakeshore Drive in Chicago is not the ghetto. It's not gangland. You know, it's a very affluent, high cost area, almost like Buckhead. And so you begin to see this whole pattern goes on. Now, while they may have worked out deals and probably still paying on this stuff because it's a lot of money involved, some of those things that they've defaulted on is still owed and is still in the court system as of December 15th, 2025. So I just wanted to kind of give a synopsis that, and I don't even know if the members know. So the question becomes, Keith, what were you doing with the money? Because you're establishing churches all these years. You're traveling. You're eating, you're dining. You've moved from Indianapolis to Chicago. You're living on Lakeshore Drive. I mean, you're doing all of these things, but your church is continuing to go into court, being hauled into court for defaulting on your rent, your lease. It's being hauled into court because getting your building that you purchased was all fraudulent. So it shows that there's an integrity issue, there's a character issue, there's a stewardship issue. It also signifies that you can't be trusted to care for God's house and God's people, to make sure that they have a stable place that they can live in and be in to worship God.
And that has nothing to do with sexuality. I think that nothing
No,
to do with sexuality,
not
because
one thing.
He's having
and
conferences
owing
and
money,
owing money.
because that is not
So
everybody's
that means
story.
you
That is
shifting money.
not.
You
Not
shifting money.
one single thing. And one
You
thing
haven't.
I have learned as of recent, to segue slightly, I watched the I don't know if y'all seen it, the P Diddy docuseries recently. But to give it some context to as to what we're talking about here, P Diddy, in my personal opinion, in some aspects, was not gifted in music himself. By that I mean he's not a natural lyricist or an artist to be on stage, right? And so he would utilize other people's followings and giftings and latch on to them, grow, and then push them to the side by any means necessary. Now, to bring this back to what Keith McQueen is now choosing to do, he's manipulating the systems around him and optically giving an image to portray that he is this high and mighty person. And you are doing whatever you can to control the narrative. Even now, even now, down to us having this conversation right here, right now. Let's call a spade, because P. Diddy, even in jail, is still controlling the PR narrative that comes with the movement as to what has gone on with that case. Even now, this attention here, Keith McQueen, you kind of won. But you see, the problem is now you're getting the attention. Now it's going to blow up in your face because people don't know everything. And baby, you ain't got P. Diddy money. So let's be crystal clear. Like, if you had it like that, I could be like, hey, do whatever you got to do. But as records have shown, you just don't have it. You just don't have it. And so I'm trying to do my best. Like I said, the reason for me to be on this platform is to do my best to find understanding behind your behavior. So let me do my best to give you a grace card, because it ain't easy. Look, We are here to resolve the issue, but you are better off just coming out and speaking your full truth. If it's now, if it's later, whenever it just you decide to have a real conversation with God, talk about what's really going on, because optics, lying, being fraudulent, doing all these other things on behalf of whatever relationship, that's not walking in the way of the Lord. And I'm not perfect, and nobody on this platform is. Nobody. Neither is Bishop O.C. Allen. By any means, will never claim to be, but there is a certain way and a certain decorum you have to hold yourself to when you're doing these things, and you're just hurting people. So please do better. Please.
You know, I think the thing that, out of all of the defaults on payments, it just blows my mind that a University Community Christian Church, a church that was leasing to you, and then another religious organization that give grants to churches and to lie. I mean, and the reason why this is coming up, because Keith McQueen presents himself to be so righteous, but he's very self-righteous and so holy and hearing from God. But where was God at when you defaulted on University Community Christian Church? Where was God at when you lied and said that this Christian organization gave you a grant so that you made up false documents? So there is no reverence even for the sacred. How do you attain a building crafted? On that second podcast, it said something about the gay church and he's back with more dark secrets. No, Ezekiel, the dark secrets or the dark secreter is sitting in front of you with dark secrets. Ask him about his financial stability and his ability to run a church effectively, and all of the people who have put their lives, their names, their credit on the line to see that powerhouse church of Indianapolis would be able to succeed. That just shows me he has no integrity, no reverence for anything. You shouldn't defraud nobody. But when you start defrauding another church, when you start defrauding religious organizations that are trying to give grants to churches that are trying to do something, maybe the grant writer didn't do well. And maybe you thought you should have gotten that grant and you decided to draft something to pretend like you got it. I don't understand these things here. I don't understand it. And the truth of the matter is, and I heard Pastor Candace say, and this is true too, he's tried to duplicate some things, but there has always been this thought within the affirming movement that Keith McQueen has been in competition with his spiritual father. That he was in competition with him. And so therefore, he started trying to, if you notice that when his former spiritual father started having churches, campuses, he was having campuses and developing campuses here, there, and everywhere. So there is this thought that he has been in competition with him for the longest time. I mean, Keith seemed to have absorbed some of mimicking his spiritual father in many ways, because there were times where I would be on the phone with Keith and I'd be like, good Lord, you sound just like your spiritual father. I mean, the reverberations in his sound, and all of that. You sound just like him. His mannerisms.
Yep, he does.
All of that. And so, yeah. And so I just believe that there's a lot of anger, involved with whatever it feels like he was, exposed to or saw, along with everything else. And I believe it just came crashing down on him, the finances. And this is a way to escape. This is to escape Indianapolis. The focus is on that Chicago church, which is no longer called the Powerhouse Church of Chicago. It's called the Revival Culture Church, I believe. The organization is still called Powerhouse Global Network, but the Chicago church name has changed. And I'm curious to know, why did that change?
I think for anyone that is, and I'm talking more so to the people on the non affirming side that are eating up the not gay no more, this ex bishop from the gay church that would believe him, I believe in looking at, and I think it's good stewardship to look at the history of a thing. And when we see in the New Testament, when Saul becomes Paul, the book goes so quick. They'll have him riding on, going to Damascus one minute, turning blind, and Ananias coming along, he restores his sight, and it seems like if you're not careful that the next day he's out preaching. That's not what happened. He sat, and he sat for years, and he studied, and for a long time, the people distrusted Paul. He had become Paul at this point and did not believe that he was or should be an authority within the church because of his history. And they gave him years to prove himself. It wasn't overnight. It wasn't just because he all of a sudden was blind and now he can see. It wasn't because he said, "Forgive me, y'all, I accidentally was persecuting y'all," or any of those things. They said, "We see you, we hear what you said, but let's see some action. Let's see what happens in a few years because we don't trust you." The church that is about to trust him is so gullible to just a man that has this stacked up. Like I said, you can look it up. All of these misdealings with money, all of these, and I didn't even know about I'm not going to get a grant, but then I'm going to pretend like I did and fraudulent, put some fraudulent documentation and get money and all that kind of stuff. And yet he comes out literally 2 weeks before he did this podcast, had just had a whole gay a conference. 2 weeks later, now he's sitting on We Need to Talk, and y'all just believe him hook, line, and sinker. And y'all ready to give him, I'm sure, ready to give him money, ready to buy his books, ready to do all. Y'all better wait a few years. Y'all better do like the folks did in the old school church and give it some time because this man has not shown himself to be integral. I'm all for somebody has a spiritual transformation, all for it. But spiritual transformation, though it can come in an instant, must be proven and tested that it's real because I could sit here right now and be like, boom, oh my God, I feel straight, and go off and pretend, but the truth will be in the pudding because you can only hold up a mask but for so long. You can only be a facade but for so long. Y'all can believe him today if you want, but you better wait.
Well, I think the key thing to this, though, is just so that, it's clear in the minds of those who are listening that he does confess that he is still same sex attracted. So that he does admit, and he doesn't deny that. So I'm not sure what deliverance looks like for him because that doesn't sound like deliverance to me. And this is why that book, that manual he's putting together or has put together, deals with deliverance and discipline because you're cloaking discipline under the guise of deliverance, and that's not deliverance. You can utilize deliverance, discipline, to help manage your deliverance and to guide you in your deliverance so that you don't find yourself outside of your deliverance, but you got to first be delivered. And being same sex attracted, my friend, is not deliverance. So, therefore, if there's no deliverance, then you're just trying to discipline yourself to try to control and maintain your same sex attraction to a degree that you don't act out on it, which is very human for us to want to connect and want to be loved and to want to experience intimacy. You're going to try to discipline yourself and suppress your own sexual attraction or orientation so that you can do whatever you want to do in reinventing yourself And it's almost like he's almost like he's going through a spiritual bankruptcy or something, trying to clear out, all of this stuff that went on from 2013 all the way up to 2019. And we're talking about all the stuff in the 2020 and 21 and 22. To Pastor Candace's point, he hasn't had the time to regroup and to recover, to go to therapy. He's going from the frying pan into the fryer. He's trying to do ministry without getting himself together, getting those bills straight. Okay, get those past debts, get yourself together, heal, get some counseling before you start trying to lead. And if anybody looks at Keith, if you got any ounce of discernment and you look at him, you can tell that something is
You ain't
off.
cohesive. Yes.
Something is off, and he really needs some help and some guidance more than what he's getting from his colleagues who have their own agenda for him.
One thing one thing I believe, this has just come to me as I'm sat here thinking, and I was thinking about it a little bit last night. I believe, let me say this, I don't have disbelief in what his gifting may be. But what I believe the problem is he has pinpointed X amount of people within the community. Straight people have all the same problems that us from the community have, that they need deliverance from, that we need deliverance from. That can be drug use, that can be sex abuse, it can be whatever. These are things that happen within human nature across the board. And so the reason why I say that is, I'm not saying that you haven't delivered people from certain things. I'm not saying that. The problem comes in is when you want to put it down to sexuality, and that is that. No. There is a point in the talk where you change somebody's name, the whole Dennis to Denise situation, and he said that the previous offender had landed on the spirit of that young female, and that young female had become masculine presenting because it was that spirit that had taken over her body. And that is a spirit that came out of her and then alluded to now being completely straight. To me, that could be a story, but the problem is you made it, oh, you was once upon a time gay and now you're straight. No, but it could have just been the case. It could have just been that person, but you've centered it around sexuality. That's when the issue comes in. I'm not denying anybody's gifts. Who am I to say I am not God? But the problem is when you want to make it, we want out. Just like Nechemyah said, we are not holding nobody to nothing. I am not telling anybody you're gay and you got to stay within the LGBTQIA community. And once you're trans and once you're gay, or once you choose to be non-conforming, you have to stay there. Baby, you ain't got to stay anywhere. We don't control you. So if you want to make different choices with your life, that is more than okay. But don't think that there's anything wrong with you because of your sexuality. There's nothing wrong with you at all. You are who you are. Don't let no book, don't let no Bible, don't let no preacher, don't let no priest, don't let nobody tell you that you are wrong for who you organically are and who God actually created you to be. That's the issue. I'm not saying that we don't have demons. We all have our own personal issues. But the issue is when you blame it solely on you're this way because you are attracted to the same sex, or you don't conform to what society says. That is what Keith McQueen is now doing. You're making straight people's issues our issues. We all have issues. It's not because of my sexuality. Baby, I did a show last night. Dennis will tell you. Dennis said to me, I always believed you were straight. I promise you I'm not. I promise you I'm not. But the reason I say that is I can still put on an act to pretend to be something that I'm not in the moment, but I still am who I am. I had to, for society or for the crowd we was appeasing to, present as masculine and straight presented, but that's not who I am. I still live in my truth and being the same gender loving man. But Keith McQueen, stop making your gift our problem, because it's not. And by our, I mean the community.
And I will say this, and it's very short and sweet. A lot of people are good at God, but they're bad at life. We can speak in tongues, but yet we don't know how to speak to our husband or our wife. So a lot of people, they can dance and shout good, but they don't know how to pay their bills. They're good at God, but they're bad at life. And
Terrible.
I feel like as though, like Nechemyah said, there should have been a time of regrouping, a time of healing, especially after the divorce. There was nothing to the sort. It's just, what's the next big thing that I can go into, which this will be? What can I do now? The next big thing to go into to try to rectify all of these things. Like Michael said, it's a now it's not even about your relationship with God. It is really now just it's really the whole rollout. And one thing I will say is this, and I could be wrong, but I really feel like I am. He don't want them to know that he's delivered yet. He wants them to see the so-called process. They want him to see the so-called process
Yep.
so that he can work his
I was going
way
to say
up
the same thing. I was coming
to
in to
them.
say it. I was coming in to say, you know
Uh-huh.
what? I was speaking. I understand what you're saying, that I
hmm
was speaking ahead of turn.
hmm
It hasn't happened yet. But I'm sure as I just like
Right.
Michael had a prediction, I got one too, and I have no profit. But I predict that in the
Mhm.
next 6 to 8 months, possibly shorter, it's gonna be I'm not gay no more. And you're absolutely right. Yep,
Delivered with a
delivered.
T, with a
And
capital
there'll be
T,
a wife that soon
with a
follows
capital T.
behind that. And I pray that
Yep.
maybe hopefully it be a puppy, because please don't get no children involved. I don't want you to get puppies involved, but please don't get no children. If I can just say this, and honestly, because you know he has spies watching when we talk. If I can say this just from a
hmm
perspective of, don't go off hurting a child in the midst of all of this. Don't bring a life into this world. Don't go adopting no lives that you are going to get mixed up into this foolishness. Don't do it. Get a puppy
hmm
or a kitten or something, and that be, but don't go into this destroying innocent people. He's already destroyed plenty of innocent people. There are people in the ministry, folks wondering, are their marriages valid anymore? Folks wondering, are they going to hell? Folks they have nowhere to go as far as church. Church just shut down on them basically, and they're now just out there, and the pain behind that. But these are folks that are already, they're adults. Don't bring no children into this. This is my request. Don't bring no kids into this.
And the worst part about it,
That's got to be a part of the. It's got to be a part
It
of the
does.
image, though. It would be very disappointing,
Have a
but
little
that is
integrity.
the part
Gotta
of
have a
the
little
image.
Well,
integrity.
I think it's important to understand you do not have to engage you don't have to go that route to have children. There are plenty of LGBTIQ plus people who have kids. You know, you know, they have kids. They've adopted, or perhaps they, was in a a situation with the opposite sex, and they ended up having a child. You don't have to be an ex-gay in order to have children, and so there are plenty of LGBTIQ plus people who have kids. So if you want to talk about lineage, like he talked about in the first podcast, there are plenty of opportunities and plenty of ways to have children. And so I just think the world should know that LGBTIQ plus people do have children. And I think, just to kind of turn this just a little bit, I think that one of the problems, and this is a problem that I think is not just unique within the affirming movement, but is definitely here. And I think it happened with Keith McQueen, that people will push you when you're gifted. He was a gifted, a rising star, and honestly, early 20s. I mean, if you do the math, he was in his early 20s. And then very young, towards, I guess, maybe his towards late 20s, mid 20s, going out to pastor. How much preparation did he get? How much mentoring did he get? And he's not the only person that was sent out or allowed to go out to pastor, you know. And so and then you have this bitterness, this anger. This is why there is I believe there's a legitimate anger there. And granted, Keith, was young, needing guidance. How much of that guidance did he get? How much of that support did he get? You can have gifts all day long, but you can't allow your gifts to take you where your integrity can't keep you. And so my concern, Keith McQueen is a microcosm of a macrocosm issue that is going on when we don't support people and make sure that they're ready. We don't wait. When people are more worried about building their organization or building their congregation, they're looking for the best talent. They're looking for the brightest and the smartest. Like Trump said, we want the brightest, we want the smartest. And that's what they look for. They don't look for who's the most readiest. I know readiest is not a word, but who's most ready? How have we prepared these individuals for success? And so I think Keith McQueen is a prime example of where there is a need for us to relook at some things of how we promote people. Because do understand this, and I said this to one of the leaders that had consecrated him. I said, you and some others have created this monster, because he came as a young man early in his 20s. And who provided that guidance from overseer to bishop to apostle? That's a lot of pressure.
You
And
see,
see, it's the
And
gift. It's the gift.
yeah, and
It's the
from what
gift, and people are more worried. I just have to say it. People are worried more about your gift more than they are your character. See, it will be your gift that will make room for you, but it's going to be that character that's going to keep you in the room.
Absolutely.
And I believe that people wanted to, I know y'all know, Prophet Brian Carr. A lot of people, how can I say, it's too much money being left behind. It's too many things going on that will be beneficial. Keep on working in your gift. We don't care about you cheating on your wife, cheating on your boyfriend, or any of those things. Just work in the gift. You'll be all right. You'll get together soon.
If I could say
and
this,
I
but
think
he
that
also
And that's what that crowd
if
will
I
do.
could say,
to
go ahead.
but he
speak to
did
that,
not.
to speak to
I'm
that,
just
I
gonna be real
think.
quick.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just want to say too that people will do that because they want what's going to benefit them. They're not thinking about you. That's one of the issues that we have to deal with in our own community and other communities too. But we're only worried about our backyard. That I don't care about, your character if you're ready, as long as you're gonna make me look good. As long as I can say I made you, I ordained you, I consecrated you. They're more worried about their image and their success than they are yours. And then when your protege mimics you. Well, character has to be modeled for him. And if the people, and see, this is why Keith McQueen cannot blame the whole. He has to deal with the part. He has to deal with that particular section that he involved himself in, whereby he may have not gotten all of what he needed. And so, Keith learned some of these things from someplace. He did not learn it from his father, his biological father. He did not learn it from his mother. He did not learn these things from his grandmother or his grandparents who raised him. There were spiritual leaders in his life that modeled some things for him, advised him on some things, and he mimicked those things. Now, being an adult, you can choose, because we all made choices of things that we seen and saw. But there's a choice that he has to make, and he could have made that choice, especially with him hearing so much from God and God leading him and guiding him. Then God should tell you this is not okay. I remember a leader telling me that he was told by particular said spiritual leader, the way that you keep somebody in your church is give them a position. Give them a position. See, when you got advice and
That's it.
advisement
That's
coming
it.
out like that, this is not, you have to have sound leaders guiding you and advising you. Because if you have impressionable young people who are coming into your church or coming into your organization and they're just grabbing for anything, they're looking for acceptance, they're so glad that they can be in a place where they can be free to be who they are, and then they're introduced to things, or they see things, or they're being advised on things, and then they begin to act out on those things. And I just believe that Keith is a prime example of what happens when you get into spaces where you're not getting the training, the teaching, the support, the sound teaching, the ethical teaching, how to behave yourself ethically as a leader, how a leader leads. These are the things that happens, and we see it from the very beginning.
You're absolutely right. I was going to say that I said this a while back. I said it's illegitimate people trying to legitimize themselves with illegitimate people. When you have just slapped the title apostle or bishop on someone, see, the way in which it's supposed to work is that you are supposed to do the work of that office. Someone sees you're doing the work of said office. So now we're going to acknowledge said work of the office and give you the title. Not, we just going to give you the title, now go off and do the work. And that's oftentimes what happens.
We'll
We
figure it
going to
out.
give you the title, then you go off and fulfill that title. Because that's, they tried to do it to me, and it's how I know that they just throwing titles on folks. I was a part of the organization. After my first year, I ain't passed it but 1 year. And after the first year, we want you to become an overseer. And integrity would not allow me to accept that position. I said, overseer, what is that? Overseer of what? Well, you would be the overseer of and I think they said the southern, because I was in Savannah, the southern region. And I said, but I've only pastored for a year. Oh, that don't matter, but you're a good pastor. Blew my head up. You a good pastor, and you have a lot of insight. And because I held a degree, you hold a degree in religion and so on and so forth. You the perfect person to do this overseer. I said, let me pray about it and think about it. And the Lord said, no. For what? You ain't pastored but for a year. Now, someone with less integrity would feel, honored and feel like, oh, wow, they see me, would feel like, wow, they see something in me that I don't even see in myself. And it did happen that several people the following year came wearing blue the next time, 1 year in the game, and came wearing blue the next year because somebody played. Because, see, when you need to build something and you need to build it quick, you don't care who's in position, you just throw, because the picture got to tell the story. So I throw you in blue, I put some red on you, and the rest of y'all in black, because now when we take the picture, it's gonna be a big crew, because I have something to prove to the person that would not confirm me to begin with. Because let's take it all the way back to the beginning, when Bishop Flunder would not consecrate somebody that we know. And that person said, well, I'll go start my own, and went and tried to compete against Bishop Flunder and started building and built quickly because I need to prove something, because how dare you not put me in position. And then McQueen went, and when I said and duplicated the same thing, that's what I meant, because how dare you not put me where I want to be. I'll go do my own thing and I'll show you. And then went, did his own thing. But wait, I need players. So now I'm going to make you a prophet, you a bishop under me, you, and just start slapping collars and titles. I mean, might as well have been Oprah Winfrey. You get a collar, you get a collar, you get a collar. Anybody that come through the church, I said, shoot, I could send my dog Tiny up there. He come back holy, consecrated, and everything else. If I let him go up there for too long, yeah,
With
what
the
a doctorate.
doctorate.
Tired of that word.